Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Mathew Melton. Sorry about the handwriting. I live in District 17 here in Boise. I stand before you today representing myself as a private citizen, as a straight ally, and in favor of moving House Bill 2 to the House floor for consideration. I'd like my testimony this afternoon to stand as a reminder to each one of us present and watching elsewhere that the things that unite us as a community and as a state are greater in number and weight than the things that divide us. We've heard a lot of divisive testimony over the past 3 days, and I think that's an important reminder. It's in this vein I'd like to highlight the ways people on either side of this issue can find some common ground. I've heard this bill decried as wasteful overreach on the behalf of this legislature, that the, quote, heavy hand of government has no place dictating behavior the free market would theoretically govern on its own without regulation. I've read Milton Friedman too. I prefer Dworkin myself, but I've heard the word hope used in this context quite a bit, that business owners would hopefully see the error of their ways, that hopefully refusing to do business with our gay and trans brothers and sisters would be corrected and the free market is unprofitable, that hopefully employers would do the right thing when it comes to the hiring, firing of our gay and trans neighbors without government interference. We find ourselves in complete agreement here. We all hope for a life free of fear, of discrimination, of harassment, of harm to ourselves, our property, and our families. We hope for a brighter, better tomorrow for our children. But without a clear avenue of legal recourse laid down by law and outlined clearly in the Idaho Human Rights Act, what hope are we offering our gay and trans neighbors? Over the past 3 days, you've heard testimony of violence and hatred, exile and self-loathing. Read the statistics and hear the stories of suicide and suicidal thoughts in the gay and trans community. How can we hear those things and know those stories and say the free market is sufficient protection? Empirically, there is no sign of hope. And when hope is all you have to defend yourself, you have nothing. Now, legal counsel representing business in other cities and states have testified to the onerous nature of litigation pursuant to similar litigation or legislations and ordinances, that those laws open up small businesses and courts and governments to excessive and costly litigation. Again, we find ourselves in complete agreement. Lengthy court battles and expensive legal fees are a two-way street, not only a hazard of the employer, but the employed, the landlord and the renter, the school and the student. The last thing anyone wants is to spend 7+ years in a courtroom, but the ability to have your grievances addressed in a court of law is a central theme in the Bill of Rights, and it is a right that should be extended to all citizens of this republic, however lengthy or inconvenient it might be. If the affirmation of those rights can offer hope to the hopeless and a voice to the voiceless, if it can stay the hand of even one single gay and transgender person who is considering taking their own life prematurely, at what point do you say the cost of that is too high, that the specter of costly litigation is enough to continue to allow discrimination and fear to rule the day, that the bottom line is more important or worth more than the value of human life? Thank you. Lastly, a man spoke yesterday in opposition of this bill, equating the gay and trans human rights movement to a camel out in the cold desert night, moving slowly into the tent for warmth until eventually it muscled the occupant out entirely. Mr. Chairman, members of this body, I reject as false the notion that the tent of equal protection under the law is so small and limited that we cannot all fit under it, or that the inclusion of one comes at the expense of another. I also reject as false the notion that it is not only defensible, but ethically and politically preferable to leave the camel out in the cold to fend for itself without any protection whatsoever. These are people, remember, not animals, not camels, and as a Christian and as a human being, I personally don't believe anyone should be left out in the cold, and that is why I urge you to consider House Bill 2 for the floor. And I'd like to open myself up for questions.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.